Hi, my name is Jaitni Modi, and I am a mindset and nutrition coach. What that means is I love working with clients to improve their mental health through proper nutrition and lasting lifestyle habits. I'm here to share some self-care and self-love tips and reminders and my knowledge as a nutritionist and a health coach on a weekly basis. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please like, subscribe, and share. Today's topic is one that is pretty close to my heart. It's the topic of being an enabler. Here's a definition that I came across online, and I absolutely resonated with it. I want to share it with you as to what enabling is. It is the behavior of protecting others from experiencing the full impact and consequences of their behavior. What that means is usually this happens in the realm of alcoholism and drug addiction, is where in order to just keep the status quo and keep the peace, you let the other person continue on this downward spiral without really changing anything. That is a form of enabling as you try to protect them. However, what I realized several years ago is that enabling is really a way for me to just respect myself. I was losing myself in trying to protect the other person that I loved. So over the last several years, I've come up with some strategies and some ways to cope with this that have actually worked for me and helped me step away from being an enabler. So today I want to share those strategies with you. The first one is setting boundaries. I know this is much easier said than done. I get it, coming from a people pleaser. I'm no longer one, but I used to be for most of my life. And setting boundaries doesn't come as easily to me, so I get it. But it is the first and most essential step in trying to stop being an enabler. Set those boundaries, however simple they are, however small they are, they're important because somewhere it's a way for you to respect yourself and your values and what's important to you. So remember to set those boundaries. The second strategy is letting go of perfection. It's very easy. We hide behind the cloud of perfection, and that's the biggest barrier in any kind of positive change in us or others. I want to share an example with you with my parents. My mother is a perfectionist. And she is the homemaker, the caretaker, the end-all and be-all of our house. We love her. But she often complains, about my dad and says that he doesn't do the cleaning or he doesn't do this or he doesn't do that. Very common in many Indian households. And so, over the years I told her, I said, well, if you want him to make a change, you have to let some of that perfection go. We can't clone you. He can't do the work exactly like you want him to. There is going to be some give or take, and that's when you decide if that's acceptable. And kudos to her, she's really worked on that. Today my father does the dishes after dinner, and he does a great job. There were a couple of times when he was learning on how to do the dishes where he did struggle, but we walked him through it and patiently explained it to him. And in a way, my mother especially has reclaimed her sanity as well as her authority by letting go of this perfection, because all this time she was enabling him, right, by just doing the cleaning for him and making sure that everything was how she wanted it to be. Now, the third strategy is, stop with the stealth expectations. This is a phrase I came across in Brené Brown, the great. Brené Brown's book, it's called The Atlas of the Heart. It's one of her more recent books. If you haven't read it, please do. It's great. And stealth expectations, as she defines them, are expectations that you have of somebody else in your head. You haven't clearly articulated them, you haven't communicated them, So unless that person is a mind reader, they have no idea what you expect of them. So stop with these stealth expectations. Get clear and be direct about what you expect and what you want and what you need. In the same token, be ready for the other person to disagree or to even share their needs and wants. And this is going to lead to, hopefully, a healthy dialogue. Disagreements are acceptable, but you need to have a healthy dialogue to maneuver how to handle those disagreements and also make sure that both parties are getting what they need. The next strategy is embracing patience. And this is extremely important when you're going through change, when the other person is going through change. It never happens overnight. Transformation is truly a process, especially in the case of stepping away from being an enabler. It may take a few days, weeks, months, even years to make sure that you're no longer enabling the other person. It's very easy to fall back on old habits. So it's important that you're patient with yourself and you're patient with the other person as the changes are slowly developing. The next strategy is communicating kindly. So what I mean by this is, as you start to step away from being an enabler and you start to set those boundaries, it's huge on how you communicate. If you stonewall, if you yell, get annoyed, slam doors, your message is going to be lost in all these theatrics. So think about how you're approaching your loved one. Be clear, but be kind and be loving. I want to share a personal example with you of where I actually did this with my family. You may notice, some of my grays here. A few years ago, I decided I didn't want to color my hair anymore. I wanted to flaunt my grays. I actually really liked the streaks of gray in my hair. But I got a lot of flack for that from my parents, from close friends, close family. It was things like, oh, you look very old with the gray, you're too young to have grays, it takes away from you being beautiful, you don't look attractive enough, all kinds of things about my appearance. And every time someone said something like that to me, it would deeply hurt me, but I would just laugh it off or change the subject or just brush it under the carpet, and that was me enabling that behavior. Until one day I decided I needed to share how I felt about this and set some ground rules. And so I told my parents and, my close loved ones, and I told them, I said, I appreciate your concern, but I really like my grays. I like how I look, and it's nobody's business what I do with any part of me, except for mine. So I would appreciate it, if we can just drop this and let me enjoy my grays. After that day, there was no discussion on their part about coloring my hair. And I had a change of heart a month ago, and I told my mom, I said, I think I may want to color my hair again. And that was that. We decided to just roll with the punches. I obviously haven't followed through on that, but you're allowed to have your own opinion, and you're allowed to stick to that. You're also allowed to ask others to respect your space and your boundaries, as long as you communicate wisely and kindly. The last strategy is to celebrate yourself and others. Stepping away from not being an enabler is huge. When you notice yourself doing that, take a moment to applaud yourself. It takes so much hope, so much courage, and so much inner strength to not fall back on the old habits. Any kind of positive change is huge. So take a minute to recognize it and to congratulate yourself on it. In the same token, if your loved one is also making these changes, the person that you were enabling is making these changes and making progress, take a moment to recognize that. Take a moment to celebrate them. Change is hard, but some positive reinforcement and some words of encouragement can go a long way for you as well as the other person. So just to wrap it up, I want to go over these strategies again. First one is setting those boundaries. That's imperative. Letting go of perfection, stopping with the stealth expectations, embracing patience, everything takes time, communicating kindly and lovingly, and most importantly, celebrating yourself as well as the other person when you start to see that positive change. All of this has helped me really step away from being an enabler. I have days, I'm a work in progress, where I default to my old habits, to my old ways, because I'm trying to combat that kind of programming that I had as a child. So it takes time, but more days than others, I'm able to successfully draw the line and not be an enabler anymore. If you want to learn more about me and how I can serve you, or if you're interested in being a client, please check out my website. It's www.imperfectbodies.com. That's imperfectbodies, one word, .com. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next week.